Let's go. Okay, so we're up to the final shir of the series about a revelation at Mount Sinai in the Guide of the Perplexed. And we're learning tonight, Chelik Beis Perek Lamed Dalid. Haposek shene'emar b'Torah hini anochi shaleach malach lefonecha. So we have this parasha in Mishpatim. And comes out of nowhere. And everyone starts debating what it means. Where Hashem says, I'm going to send an angel ahead of you who's going to protect you on the road and bring you to the place that I prepared for you. Make sure to obey his commandments because my name is in him. So what is this parasha telling us? Says the Rambam, Mashma'oi, its meaning is Huma she'izbayer b'mishnah Torah. She'Hashem omar l'Moshe b'maimer Sinai novi okim lohem. So the Rambam says, look in Sefer Devarim, in Parsha Shoftim, and there it says that there's going to be a Navi that follows Moshe Rabbeinu. And there in Parsha Shoftim it says that the reason why it's going to be a Navi is because, I'll read the Psukim, because we asked for it at Maimer Sinai. Navi mikir b'cha me'achecha kamoini yakim l'cha Hashem Elokecha elov tishma'un. This is Moshe speaking. There'll be a Navi from amongst you like me. K'choil asher sha'altam yom Hashem Elokecha b'chorev b'yom ha'kol leimer lo oisif l'shmoyes kol Hashem Elokecha v'es eish ha'gadol azois le'erev v'lo omos. Just like you said at Maimer Sinai, we can't hear the voice, we cannot continue hearing the koil of Hashem Elokecha. And if we see this fire, we're going to die. Okay. So the institution of Nevi'im follows upon the fact that we couldn't face the koil of Hashem directly out of fear that we're going to die. And because of that, there's this institution called Nevi'im. That's what it says in Parsha Shoftim, which you might read as follows, and we'll see the Rambam is saying something much more than that. You might read Parsha Shoftim as saying the following: since you can face Hashem yourself, therefore you need an intermediary, which was Moshe. Moshe eventually will pass on, and therefore is going to be replaced with another Navi. We're not talking about Nevuah as opposed to Moshe. Moshe's relationship with Hashem is not called Nevuah. It's called Nevuah, but it's a Lashon Meshutaf. The word Nevuah means Moshe's Nevuah and Shar Nevi'im. This parsha is, you could read it as not specifying, it's not about the fact that there's not going to be Nevuah Moshe, but rather Shar Nevi'im. Okay, it's a little bit confused. It's not. I'm making it sound more confusing than it is. There are two things that it says in Parsha Shoftim. It says they are going to be Nevi'im, okay, and it also says that it's going to be a Navi after Moshe. So there are two things happening there. One is about the fact that we don't talk directly to Hashem, and one is who is going to talk to Hashem, and that is someone who's going to replace Moshe Rabbeinu. Okay, then and it references, as you asked, B'chorev, saying I can't talk to Hashem. So you could read it like this: since you won't talk directly to Hashem, therefore you need an intermediary. Right now that's me, and after my death it's going to be a Navi because I'm not going to be here forever. But the Rambam is saying that the fact that there's going to be a Navi who communicates with a Malach as opposed to Moshe, that follows from the request at Har Sinai. Specifically, the fact that there's going to be a Navi that talks to Hashem through the intermediation of a Malach.
But wasn't that pre-Moshe also?
What? That other Nevi'im were through a Malach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not a chiddush that it happened after. It's just a matter of fact.
Yes. Okay. But let's see. Yeah. Maybe I'm putting too fine a point on this. I'll let the Rambam speak for himself, and then we'll see if there's any point to be made with it. The reason I'm stressing is just as follows, because what the Rambam is saying is like this. The Babanel speaks this out. The Rambam is connecting this parsha of Hini Anochi Shleich Malach Onecha to Devarim Perek Yud Ches. Why? Because in Devarim Perek Yud Ches it says that the institution of the Nevuah was a response to the request at Har Sinai. So if you look back at Maimer Har Sinai, Where do we find anything about the institution of Nevuah? It must be that here in Parashat Shpatim, where it says, that means there are going to be Nevi'im. And Nevi'im, besides for Moshe Rabbeinu, are interact with the Malach. So you see the Rambam's focus here, the way the Rambam is reading the reference to Maimed Har Sinai, is not just that we're saying instead of direct communication with Hashem, we have an intermediary who is Moshe or Shar Nevi'im, but rather there's a specific focus on the fact that it's going to be Nevuah, which is through a Malach, and not Panim B'Panim. That's just the point I was bringing out. We'll see how that all comes together in the Rambam's in the Parak. So what does it mean when it says Yanei Cheshalim Lefanecha? It's referring to the same thing that it says in Devarim, that at Maimed Har Sinai was determined that there's going to be a Navi. Haraya Lekach, how do we know that Hinei Cheshalim Malach means that there's going to be a Navi who communicates with the Malach? Maybe it means there's going to be a Malach that communicates directly with you, which would mean we're Nevi'im. So the pasuk says, "He devarv legabe Malach hazeh, he shamer upon v'shma b'koiloi." Listen to the Malach. Now, ein safek shatzivu hazehu dafka lamoin ha'am. When the Torah says, "Make sure to listen to the Malach," who's it talking to? It's not talking to Moshe; it's talking to the people. V'harei lamoin ha'am hamalach ina mizgala. The people don't see a Malach. Veinu b'tzava aleim. Nor does he give them direct commandments. So what does it mean, make sure to obey the Malach? Make sure to listen to the Malach who's being quoted by the Navi. The Navi. So the Navi channels to us the words of the Malach. So it's like the Rambam, when the pasuk says there's going to be a Malach, make sure to obey him, it must be referring to Nevuah. Because how do we hear what a Malach says? We only hear it from the Navi. So therefore, Yishamer Panav Shema B'Koiloi is identical to Elov Tishmon, as it says in Mishnah Torah, K'moshe Mishnah Torah, V'Amar Elov Tishmon. And another parallel, Va'omar, this is all the parallels from Parashat Shoftim to Parashat Mishpatim. You have to listen to the Navi who speaks in my name. So we talk about the shame being in something else. In Parashat Shoftim, it's the Navi speaking in the name of Hashem. In Parashat Mishpatim, it's the Malach who bears the name of Hashem and brings it to the Navi, something like that. Okay. All the purpose of all this is to tell them the following. This great vision. Maimed Har Sinai. Ein hu davar tmidi etzlechem. It's not something constant. It won't recur. Now the Rambam brings in the Eish and the Anon. The Eish and the Anon that's on the Mishkan. So what's he saying over here? He's saying that because that when the Torah says it's going to be a Navi, that's another way of saying that Maimed Har Sinai won't be forever, or won't recur. It won't be forever and won't recur. And it's also saying that the Eish and the Anon that were on the Mishkan won't continue. How is it saying that the Eish and the Anon on the Mishkan won't continue? So apparently, the Eish and the Anon are, number one, associated with Maimed Har Sinai, which is the Ramban says in Parshas Truma, the first Ramban 6 Parsha, that also the Mikdash Shechanti B'Soicham is to transfer the Eish and the Anon from Maimed Har Sinai to the Mishkan. And furthermore, the Eish and the Anon on the Mishkan are a continuation of Nevuas Moshe. Because what the Rambam is saying over here is that, or they're associated with Nevuas Moshe. And we had Nevuas Moshe for another 40 years. And we have here in Parashat Shoftim, the pasuk is saying there will be a Navi, which means, as it says in Parashat Shoftim, it's going to be Derech Malach, and that's decidedly different from Nevuas Moshe, as Rambam ends the parak and says, this is the biggest side I have all the time, that every Navi besides from Moshe happened through a Malach. And why will we have a Nevuah through a Malach? Because Maimed Har Sinai won't be forever. Maimed Har Sinai was when we witnessed Moshe's Nevuah. there was some extension of Mount Sinai through the 40 years on the Mishkan, and the Eish and the Anan from Har Sinai was the present on the Mishkan, and Moshe's communication with Hashem was associated with that Anan. The pasuk says there was an Anan Pesach oil and Diber Moshe, and but that's not going to be forever.
So is the Mount Sinai reference to the Eish and the Anan, or the Koil, or all of it, or just the Koil?
I think all of it, because there was Eish and Anan on the Mishkan. Now the Rambam says like this: the Mount Sinai is not a davar tamidi. That's the Koil, Eish, and the Anan. And even though it was Nimshach on the Mishkan, that won't be forever.
So, I mean, even though it seemed like part of it continued,
there was some continuation of Mount Sinai, but even that continuation is only temporary, and that continuation is associated with Nevuas Moshe. But you're not going to have Nevuas Moshe forever, okay? And remember, and somehow this is all connected to the fact that we said we can't talk to Hashem. You see what I was doing a very bad job, I think, of presenting in the beginning, that there's two different things happening over here. One is that we don't want to talk to Hashem, but let Moshe talk to Hashem. But now, we're not just saying that Moshe is going to talk to Hashem instead of us. We're saying there's going to be Nevi'im who talk to Hashem through a Malach, meaning we're not going to have Moshe. Why? Why won't we have Moshe? Apparently, the fact that we don't talk directly to Hashem also means, it also follows from that Nevuas Moshe is going to come to an end. Because the 40 years on the Mishkan was still Moshe talking to Hashem. And therefore there's going to be a Navi who's going, therefore there's meaning, therefore even Nevuas Moshe, which is not you talking directly to Hashem, but it's some continuation of that great event where you had that possible option of talking to Hashem, but ran away from it. There's a continuation, and even that is going to eventually peter out. So there's like a gradation. There's Mount Sinai, and then there's 40 years of Hemshech.
I thought he was just simply saying that despite that we no longer have, even though we got closer,
right?
We think that the only way to sort of have nevuah is when it's at that level. We still have nevuah at a level of Moshe Rabbeinu and direct to Hashem. Kamash Malam, that even without that, we still have a concept of nevuah, and then we have to abide by it.
No, but why is the response to the fact that we won't talk to Hashem? Why is the response to that Hinei Chishlech Malach? There's two different facts over here. We won't talk to Hashem, so we need someone who will. Either it's Moshe. If it's not Moshe, it's Yeshua, and Yeshua is Argdei Malach, and Moshe's Argdei is direct. Okay, but
we still have to listen, even though we're no longer direct. We still have to. That nevuah is still authentic nevuah.
Right, but why is the response to the fact that we don't talk to Hashem to say Hinei Chishlech Malach?
Maybe let the next Navi speak directly to Hashem.
Maybe, yeah. Or Sheken or Shelo. Right. In other words, if we would talk directly to Hashem, then that could go on forever, maybe. So, but we won't talk directly to Hashem. Instead, Moshe talks directly to Hashem. So why can't that go on forever? Okay, Elamai because Moshe not forever. Male, if we would talk directly to Hashem, so our kids would as well. But once we're not all willing to do it, only one person can do it. No one individual's forever. So Mamela follows that there's going to be a Malach. It's like a little bit odd, no? You see what I'm pointing at?
I hear what you're pointing at, but isn't it that we were only able to talk directly to Hashem because of Moshe?
Oh, that's what I think. Right.
Once Moshe goes away, so once we give up that opportunity to talk directly, okay, you've lost your guy.
Right.
And anybody else who does it, it's going to have to be Malach because Moshe, like you said, it was a one-time thing.
So you mean even the fact that so you're saying that even the Mount Sinai is mediated by Moshe, and the fact that we moved away from that, right?
And now Moshe's gone. So that's not
so the
possible
fact
anymore. That was Moshe's trick. Moshe was able to present that to us. Not trick,
you're saying like this. Okay, so I think what you're saying is that Moshe brought the possibility of panim upon him, and he taka lived up to it. He also brought that to us as an option, but we couldn't live up to it. So now the alternative is non-Moshe. Non-Moshe is Navi, right?
This is how
okay, fine.
Moshe happens.
Fine.
It's not a response to
that's
us
fine.
Saying we don't want to do direct. So nobody.
That's fine. I think that's fine. I think that's okay. The point is that the Rambam's putting together. Let's see. I think that would be fine, and for the Rambam's purposes, I think that could be adequate in the shot in the Rambam. But he's putting together the fact that we're not talking directly with the fact that Nevuas Moshe is going to be replaced with something else, right? At least that we could point out so far. Just and then let's see how this comes together.
Can we also say that when they said that they didn't want it, they've officially set it up so that anybody afterwards who even becomes a Navi can never get to that level again. We don't want it, so even a Navi who makes it to that level, he's already blown it. He's also said, I don't want it anymore. Right. So he's stuck with a Malach level.
Yeah. No, I think that's 100% correct. In other words, when we read this pasuk of, okay, there's a possibility of panim b'panim, but we can't live up to it, right? what that is saying is that it's impossible to be like Moshe. That's exactly what that's saying, as we discussed previous weeks, that you die if you do panim b'panim. And there was this special one-time dispensation that Moshe was protected. And perhaps potentially we could have joined him in that protection, right? We're getting that to the question, like, should we have taken it? Was it a problem that we didn't? Or was it all... It was just a way of showing that this is impossible, okay? But let's say maybe potentially we could have joined him, but we didn't, okay? So now what? Now Moshe is doing this by himself. Now whatever Moshe is doing is not spreading to the rest of us. So therefore, we are all now down to the level of Hinei Nechei Malach. Right? Is that? I think is that what you were saying?
I think that's what kind of we're both trying to say.
Yeah. Good. Right. Exactly. So basically, we rejected being Nevi'im like Moshe. Again, does that mean we could have been, or is this just showing that we couldn't have been? Those are two fair options in my mind. Okay. Although we have the problem of levels. Okay, we're going to go into the technicalities now. The point is that the rejection of the voice of Hashem to us is a rejection of Nevuas Moshe being a widespread phenomenon, as we keep on discussing, that our experience was also called panim b'panim, but we ran away from it. Had we not run away from it, there would have been widespread Nevuas Moshe, or a kind of Nevuas Moshe that at least includes everyone on some level, and whatever that's supposed to mean. And instead, now the communication from God happens derech malach. Yeah, that's what I'm said so far. And he also said that, he also indicated that the Eish and the Anan on the Mishkan is a continuation of the communication with Moshe, and it's a continuation of Mount Sinai. Because the message of Navi, there's going to be a Navi, and that communicates to a Malach. He expresses by saying, there won't be an Eish and an Anan. And where does he see this in the Pasuk? I'll show you in a minute, because he says the following. Ach mi sheyichbosh lochem es ha'aretz, v'yachshir lefneim es ha'karka, v'yodia eschem ma'alechem la'asos. Because this is the Pasuk. The Pasuk says, Shmorcha b'derech u'laviach ala makom asher achinoisi. So he's going to pave the way for you, and he's going to bring you into the Eretz Yisrael, and you have to listen to him. So these are the three things that these are three things that correspond to what was originally happening through Moshe. The last one, listening to him, obviously Moshe is giving the tzivuyim, and the Anan and the Eish were how we waged war. We waged war with the Mitzrim. Vayashkif Hashem al machne Mitzrayim ba'amud Eish va'Anan. So had we gone into Eretz Yisrael with this amud Eish va'Anan, the wars in Eretz Yisrael would have not have been through a malach. And by the way, through a malach, I'm assuming the Rambam has in mind the story in Yeshua, where Sarat Tzavor Hashem appears to Yeshua as a malach, and Chai B'shtufa B'yadai, and that's the commandment to Yeshua to wage war. But L'maisa Yeshua wages war, because he was commandment. He says, Hu yodia lechem ma ro'eh lekam ma ish lehimana. The way you're going to have direction from Hashem, and the way you're going to be kovish to Artzei Malach, is because a malach will come to the Navi Yeshua and tell him what to do. Okay? How to wage war. Originally, the way we waged war, the illustration of the war would be the war against Mitzrayim, which the Amud Eish and the Anan. And that's what was kovish things, and that was machshir the karka, as the pasuk says. The Anan was lan choisam haderech, and that was also modia anu malases, as we mentioned earlier, because Moshe went to the Pesach HaOil, and the Anan was there, and the pasuk says v'diber, and it would speak. Not the Anan, but it sounds like the Anan speaking. Fine, it means Hashem speaking, but is it speaking to Hashem is associated with the Anan? So these are the three things that the Amud Eish and the Anan did. And now when the pasuk is saying that the Malach is going to be lan choisam baderech v'laviach alochem machshemeshen chinoisi, so that's what the Rambam sees, that the Malach is replacing the Amud Eish v'Anan, because that's what was lan choisam baderech. V'anan Hashem hoylech lefneim lan choisam baderech. So if the pasuk over here says it's going to be a Malach, who's going to be Lishmocha Baderech. And as Rambam explains, Yachshel Fnechem Sakarka. So that's an allusion to the Anon that was, as Chazal say, prepared the ground. So that's where the Rambam sees that the Malach is replacing not just Moshe Rabbeinu, but also replacing the Amud Eish and the Anon that was on the Mishkan. Okay, that's what I think he's alluding to here. Gam bazeh nitan hasoid hayasoid. I'm sorry. She'eni poisik tomin milavaroi. Here too is the rule the fundamental principle that I always explain. Shalachol navi milavad Moshe Rabbeinu ba'o hahiskalos al yidei maloch. Da zois. Okay. Good. So what does it say in this parak? That had we not been afraid of hearing the koil, then it would have been ongoing. The Amud Eish Anon would have been ongoing. It would have gone into Eretz Yisrael with the Mishkan and the Amud Eish of Anon. Mount Sinai would have been ongoing. Right? And the Nevuas Moshe would have been ongoing because it's the replacement for Nevuas Moshe. The fact that now there's Nevuah de Malach is only because we were not willing to accept to speak with the voice, to speak to Hashem. Now, Ma'amad Asin was a nes, right? That's what we started with. The end of Perek Lamed Beis, things happen on derech nes.
Yeah.
Okay. The implication of this parak is that the miracle of Ma'amad Asin would have been an ongoing miracle had we been able to really face the Koil Hashem. Okay. But we know that miracles are never ongoing. Right? Big rule in the Rambam. I'll show you some of the Rambam I sent you. But look, in the next parak, this is what I sent, the last thing I sent earlier this evening. I don't know if I sent it before, so I wanted you to see this. In the next parak, the Rambam starts the next parak by saying that Nevuas Moshe is different than Nevuas Shar Nevi'im in 4 different ways. And similarly, this is the end of paragraph number 1 in Perek Lamed Hey. Moivsav umoivsei zulasei. His miracles and the miracles of those other than Moshe are fundamentally different. Moivsav einam mimin moivsei shar nevi'im. Okay, so the Rambam in this parak that we just learned told us that the great miraculous event, which is of Mount Sinai, could have been permanent, except that we're not living up to Moshe's level. So now Moshe's level is replaced with Nevuah de Malach. Although miracles typically are not permanent, here the Rambam says, the Rambam then continues this, I was talking about the miracles of Moshe being different. Okay. So that's a clue. It's a clue to understanding the possibility of the miracles of Mount Sinai having been ongoing had we only lived up to Moshe Rabbeinu. Yeah, just a clue. So let's see. So we want to understand why is it that miracles are not ongoing, and how is there a possibility that had we participated in the Nevuas Moshe? Yeah, that's the question I want to start with. Okay, and because I'll show you first of all that it's not true that the miracles of Moshe that Moshe performed are ongoing. This Rambam says in Chilik Beis Perek Chav Tes. In Chilik Beis Perek Chav Ches and Chav Tes, he talks about these principles of miracles not being permanent. So one place is in Perek Chav Tes, paragraph number 28.
For the purpose of this are all miracles the same in the sense of, or is the miracle of talking directly to Hashem always an ace, even if it would become permanent?
So I'm talking about the miracle of the fire, which Rambam said in the end of Perek Lamed Beis, the koilis and brokim and the eish. That's a miracle. Talking to Hashem.
Meaning fires would normally
I don't know what that is.
Happen in. Meaning just because it was Hashem, whatever the fire, or is it just because the fires would always happen on top of mountains? That would be teva. It wouldn't be a nace.
So are you saying that if a miracle would be permanent, it wouldn't? It would cease to be a nace? Is that what you're saying?
Everything is a miracle until permanent. Meaning our existence is a miracle, except that because it's regular.
Yeah, there's a Rambam in the Gerst Chis Mason. Do we have that here? The Igros Rambam somewhere? Yeah.
So I thought maybe you were saying that the miracle of a direct interaction would no matter what would always be a miracle.
Okay.
Even if it was every single day, it would always be a miracle to talk.
No. I'm talking about the fire and the koilas broken. Those things that are miracles. Okay, we have to figure this out. Why can't miracles be permanent? Right? If a miracle is permanent, is that the same thing as saying the laws of nature change? Does that have any meaning? New laws of nature? What does that mean? Okay, so let's see what the Rambam says about that. Right? Okay, that's what I'm asking. But I just want to point out one thing. I want to first point out that it's not correct to say that even though the Rambam has a rule that nisim are not masmidim, it's not correct to say that it does not apply to the miracles of Moshe. Just want to mafkia that tzad. Okay, because in Chelik Beis Paragraph Tes, paragraph number 28, he says. I don't know. You could look for the words Olam Kimin Hagi Noyeg, but before that he says, Afa Pisha Hamate Nepach Lenochosh, Vahamayim Nepchu Ledom, Vayod HaTorah Nechbedes, Nepchu Levona. So these are nisim of Moshe. Mibli Shahis Siba Tivish Agam Lekach, even though there was no natural cause. They didn't continue, they didn't become a second nature, like you were talking about, the new nature. So it's a very important rule. There will not be a fundamental change in the world, and therefore he says the world will exist forever. Because there's no such thing as permanent changes. So very clearly, even nevuos of Moshe, even miracles of Moshe, even though the next paragraph he says the nisim of Moshe are fundamentally different, that doesn't mean that the miracles of Moshe are an exception to this rule that nisim are not masamid. Okay? So then how is this possibility of basically I want to understand, let's say we would have been able to face Hashem, so it's Mashal Rambam then that there wouldn't be Navi Adei Malach. What would it have been, right? We're in a alternative universe now. Hashem comes to us on Sinai, upon him, and we're all doing this. We all do upon him. So we're all like Moshe Rabbeinu, and the fire always continues, and the shofar always continues, and we always hear the word of Hashem. So what about the fact that nisim are not masamid? Yeah, that's the question. That's the question.
Also, we can't be talking about the koil as part of the nisim. I'm trying to find
the koil of Hashem.
Yeah, because he says here, Perplexed, we didn't believe in Moshe because of nisim.
Right.
Which means to the extent we believe in Moshe because of the koil, so then that wasn't a nice.
Very good.
So
Perplexed meeting. Look at the beginning of Perplexed meeting.
Oh, here we go. And he explains that
yeah, but maybe it says asa. Maybe it's rather, maybe our experience was an ace. Inenu ra'u, but was that was the experience of hearing the Koil Hashem, is that called an ace? That's a very interesting question. I don't know. Can't prove it.
Because then it would be a question on this Rambam. Okay, so Moshe just had a better trick,
No, we experienced it. No, our experience of it might be an ace.
Okay, but then it's still an ace. That means our experience is an ace.
Okay.
It means an ace occurs that allows us to believe in Moshe. The Rambam saying Beferish not that. He's saying we don't believe in Moshe because of an ace.
Not sure about that.
You're saying there's a way to read this that leaves room for that to not be the case.
Maybe.
But we're analyzing Moshe's nisim are different, whether or not they're different. Or not.
Yeah.
But our hasaga of whatever happened at Har Sinai is not Moshe's nays per se. It's our nays.
Okay, good. So you're saying it wouldn't even work. It wouldn't even help.
No, we're talking about something different.
Repeat that point?
It wasn't Moshe's nays that we heard what we saw at Har Sinai.
It was. He generated the cut.
No.
To the extent you want to say
the shofar. No. So 1 second. So Tavi, you're asking. I think what you're asking is like this. I just pointed out like this. The Rambam in this parak. Let's just end those. I think this will also be a good summary of what we saw so far, just to take us to the next step. The Rambam in this parak said that there's this world called Har Sinai world, and that's the Nevuas Moshe world, and that's also Eish and Anan world, which is a miracle. It's not going to recur. It did have some effects for 40 years. Remind me, I want to say something about the 40 years that occurred to me. In the Mishkan, and but then that whole paradigm is over. And that's all because etc. Had we embraced the Koil Hashem, which is or isn't a real possibility, but hypothetically, had we done so, the implication is that Maimon Asina would have been ongoing. Okay. Which violates everything we know about miracles being one-time events. So I said, well, look, isn't it interesting that the next thing the Rambam says is that Moifsim of Moshe are different than Moifsim of Zulase. So Then I said, lest you say just a simple thing that the whole rule about miracles not being permanent does not apply to Nevuas Moshe, to Nisim Moshe as a rule. That can't be true because there are three examples Rambam says of temporary Nisim, which are the Mata turning into a Nachash, the water turning into blood, and the holy hand turning white, were temporary. Those were all involving Moshe. And I think what Tevi's asking is, so that's the summary of what we're up to, and Tevi's asking, what would it even help? This wasn't a nace that Moshe wrought. Okay, fine. It would help because this nace is closely associated with the level of Nevuas Moshe, right? Because it's all about whether we can be like Moshe. You see? Because in other words, if Mount Sinai is the possibility for it's Moshe, who is the star of Mount Sinai? Moshe, right? He's the star. But everyone else has this possibility to participate and be like him. And the Rambam is saying, had we all been like him, right? So had we all been like him, then the nace may have been equivalent to a nace of Moshe. Okay, that's what I'm thinking. Okay, you see, right? Tavi's kasha doesn't say that Moshe picked up his hand and brought Kurlis Ubrakim, right? That's your asking, right? So I'm saying that maybe the Moifsim that are part of the package called Nevuas Moshe are the ones that are different, and these Moifsim are associated with Nevuas Moshe in an unspecified way for now. Okay,
even if he's not the agent specifically.
Right, and this is going to be my answer ultimately. So let's see. That yes, the Rambam is alluding in the next parak to say think about Moshe be different, because I just told you some big surprise in Parak Lamed Dalet about the miraculous event that it could have hypothetically been ongoing if we would only all be like Moshe. And yes, it has something to do with the Moshe being different, which we shall now explore. Okay, just something about 40 years. It just reminded me of the Kuzri that says that Nevuah, which ended 40 years into the Bayis Sheni, even though Nevuah is associated with the Bayis Rishon, because Chazal say the Shechina wasn't trying to Bayis Sheni. So where did Nevuah come in the Bayis Sheni then? Shechina wasn't trying to Bayis Sheni, which also means there was no Nevuah. And yet there was Nevuah till 40 years in. So Yehuda Levi says that Nevuah accompanied the Banshee Bayis Sheni as a siyua, as like a holdover from the Davar Alaki, from the Shechina that was sharing the Bayis Rishon. So you see that 40 years the shear of a hemshech, an echo, right? So maybe it's a tzushta, right? That Moshe there was only Moshe's be'etzim, his panim b'panim was at Mount Sinai, be'ikr, but it could be nimshach 40 years in the Mishkan, like the Bayis Sheni, yeah. Yeah, what about them?
They're in the same 40-year window,
right?
But it seems to be just regular Nevuah.
Regular Nevuah?
Yeah. Seems to
Is it? Well, Nali De Malach? Right. No, it's very interesting because
We said it is Ali De Malach. We said.
Who says Ade Malach? Who says?
We said. Ram said everything after.
Anyone besides from Moshe.
Everyone besides Moshe has to be through a Malach. So
Right.
The assumption is that it would include them.
Right.
But they're within that 40-year
Right.
period where, in theory, it could
Right.
have had the ability.
Right, and the fact is, right, very good. The fact is, if you're looking at Parashat Shoftim, it's after Moshe. It's all about the replacement for Moshe, which means
That Nevuah wasn't for Klal Yisrael per se.
what Eldon Meidad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Doesn't sound like it.
Yeah, I don't know. Right, L'chayra, is it true to say that there was no functioning Navi with a role in the life of Moshe? Is that correct?
Aaron, okay.
Alright, something.
As a
Says
Navi?
Davar Hashem el Aaron plenty of times.
You're married at some level.
No, but as a Navi with Koyam Hashem, like with a message to the people?
No, not to the people. Wouldn't
Right. So maybe Navi La'atzmai, maybe different. Maybe that's not the discussion here. We're talking about a Navi La'cher, a Navi who's the means of communicating the teaching people what to do. Aha. Okay. Very interesting. Okay. So let's talk about why Nisim. Now let's understand. So why can't Nisim be permanent? Says the Rambam. Now I am in. Where am I now? Let's see. Let's go back to that paragraph in Beis Chavtes 28. Right. Hishamrus min Hanisim. Okay, I guess I'll have to paraphrase here. Basically, the Rambam says that there's something called Teva, and Teva is inviolate in the sense that it can be temporarily abrogated, but ultimately there is a rule of the world called Teva. And this he says as well in, I think this is also in Beis Chav Ches, which is a shorter parak. Right? Okay, let's see what he says in Beis Chav Ches. Here he says that nature will never change permanently, and he talks about the pasuk in Keheles, Kol asher ya'asu ha'elohim hu yiyeh la'olam. Olav ein lahoisif, mimenu ein ligraya. So the Rambam says about this pasuk, right? So everything that God made is forever, and you cannot add or detract from it. So he says like this, Ki'ilu hu oimer, shehadavar hamishtane. Why does anything ever change? Why do you change something? Because it's imperfect. You usually want to perfect it. Or it has something additional. So either you have to add to something or detract from it because it's imperfect. Since the world is perfect, there can't be any catalyst for them to change, right? So this is the argument against miracles. Well, miracles suggest that the world is imperfect. God made a world where the Jews would drown when chased by the Egyptians. So he had to intervene. So there's something imperfect about his world. That doesn't make sense. So the world is perfect. And therefore the Rambam says that the world will never change permanently. But there is some, nonetheless, temporary changes, which we call nisim. So what's the reason for that? There's an explanation for why changes do happen. So why do miracles happen then? Shouldn't have God made the world, if God made a perfect world, why does he intervene occasionally? Why did he make that it's necessary for him to sometimes tweak it now and then, which we call an ace? So that people fear him. So it means like this. On the one hand, the world is supposed to be perfect because the world is done with chachma. And a perfect world should never need divine intervention. On the other hand, then there wouldn't be yira because we would live in a world that's self-sufficient. And the fact that sometimes there has to be intervention, which goes against the order of the world, that's what induces yira. Okay? So, I'll say this maybe somewhat briefly. Let's see if I can. But it's something I spoke about a lot in the shares in the issue about creation. That in the Rambam's understanding, there's Chachma of Hashem and there's Ratzon of Hashem. And the Chachma of Hashem is expressed in the fact that the world is orderly. And more than that the world must exist because if it's right for the world to exist, then the world should exist. So that suggests, as we discussed in Barichos, that suggests that the world always existed, which is Aristotle's argument in favor of Kadmos. If it's reasonable that there be a world, there must have always been a world. Nonetheless, we believe in creation ex nihilo. And by the way, in this Beis Chav Tes, this other parak we looked at just now, is where the Rambam says he's moeded to Aristotle halfway. The Hainu, although Shlomo HaMelech says the world is forever and won't change, and as Aristotle says the world is forever into the future, so that way he's moeded to Aristotle. But we believe that the world came into existence yesh me'ayin, which means that although it's true that the world as it is cannot be changed because it's perfect, which means that it's wise and reasonable and right, which means it's rooted in Hashem's chokhmah. Nonetheless, we part ways with Aristotle, who denies Nisim and denies creation ex nihilo, is that we also say there's an element of Hashem's Ratzon, which is to say things that don't follow Hashem's chokhmah, cannot be explained. And the prime examples of that are creation ex nihilo, because why would Hashem create the world then and not eternally, and miracles. And that's where we part ways with Aristotle. But, and this is very significant for the Rambam, that the way that Nisim induce Yira is because they actually violate the principle of Chachma. So there's a tension between the perfection of the world and Nisim, and it's in that tension that Nisim have their power to make Yira. By which I mean to say something very simple, that let's say a Nes would happen and then it would remain that way. So Rambam in Igeres Tchias HaMeisim, and I might be not saying this exactly 100% accurately, so you can look it up later, or maybe I'll look it up and post it, says if a Nes would happen and become Teva, it would lose its potency. The whole power of an ace is that we see it happening, but we also know it can't happen. But if it happens, then it just becomes the new nature. So even if it's true that God changed nature, but why is that interesting? Okay, so now this is nature.
It would still be a nace. It would be a point
Right.
of a nace, but it would still be a nace.
Right. Oh, exactly. But the point of an ace is sheyir malafanov, meaning to say we understand what Hashem is doing. We understand that He wants a world which is reasonable, where nisim cannot happen, al pi everything we know or think we know, which is ganz chachmas Aristotle, and nonetheless nisim do happen, which undermines ganz chachmas Aristotle, and it induces yira because of that tension between what we know to be correct, which is that the world shouldn't change, because it's perfect, and then every once in a while there's this glitch, and there's a little bit of a shake, and the world all of a sudden does change and undermines everything we think we know.
And if we would have accepted and we were able to pull off we're gonna
Moshe?
Moshe, would we still need Europe?
Oh, very good. So it's much deeper than that. So this is why. Okay, so now we know why Nisim can't change because now we understand the function of Nisim, right? We have a very complicated system. There's Chachma and there's Ratzon. And these two things are in tension with each other. And that tension is what induces Yira. Okay?
So, to finish that point for me though, so why does it induce Yira? Because we see there's something that transcends Chachma.
Correct.
We can't understand. So
Correct. Not only we can't understand, we know it's wrong. And we're supposed to know it's wrong. We're supposed to know that the world should not, the sea should not split.
And this,
because we know science or whatever the deeper science
would
is.
apply to the different categories of Nisim that the Rambam delineates around this Nisim?
Not sure. Well, at least for the ones that change nature.
Violating Teva.
At least that one. Okay, let's I'm not differentiating for now, but I'm saying let's just assume they're all like that. Which may be a makam ian in what I'm saying. Probably is a makam ian. Okay, this is the Malach of Nisim. We live in a world where we understand it, and Hashem made it an understandable world. Understandable world means Nisim should not happen. And so we are rooted in understanding, as we should be. And at the same time, we occasionally have to face the fact that our understanding is insufficient. And that's what an ace indicates to us, and that's what induces Yira. Okay? If the nace would become masmid, it wouldn't affect Yira. And also we would lose all chachma. If nisim would happen all the time, if nisim wouldn't be rare, the Rambam likes his nisim to be rare. Why? Because if they would happen too often, then we would just not be chacham anymore. We would say everything's a nace, and nothing has to be anyway, which people say that. Rambam does not believe that. Rambam holds no, chachma is real. That's what he holds. Okay. So now what I did over here was, we tell you we're getting to the point, but it's much, much deeper, because this whole business that there's this dichotomy between Ratzon and Chachma is obviously not true. Because Hashem doesn't have Chachma and He doesn't have Ratzon in any true sense. Hashem is completely simple and unified. The fact that we differentiate between Hashem's Chachma and Hashem's Ratzon is only because we're not masking Him. So in other words, in the world where we're not masig Hashem, so what are we masig? Well, masig is midas hachachma, or masig midas haratzon, and those two have this interplay, very, very specific and exact kind of interplay, such that we, on the one hand, be'ikr, live with chachma, and be'ikr experience chachma, but also sometimes face ratzon, and therefore Hashem. But what if we would have all been misachid Hashem as Moshe was? Again, remind you, those are the Rambam's words, not mine. Moshe misachid Hashem. What if we're misachid Hashem? What if we die? What if we don't want to come back to this world? So then I submit to you that change in Teva doesn't make a difference. There's no change because it's only a change relative to Chachma as opposed to Ratzon. We transcended all those categories. Yeah, kids who transcended those categories. Right.
You're not even you anymore.
You're not you anymore. So maybe you're an avatar like Moshe Rabbeinu was, and maybe we have a role to sort of be like a hologram, I guess. Like we're not really here in this world. We're Im Hashem, but we're supposed to walk around this world like Moshe did. Fine. But Bekitzer, everything's different. The least we could say is everything's different, okay? The least we could say is what you were saying, that the function of year is not going to be there. It's going to be a whole different mahalach, right? But I'm saying, I think it goes to the point where this whole binyan, where there's this various various ways of relating to Hashem, which is to say various ways of understanding His drachim, that stand in tension to each other is only in as much as we're not doing Moshe, right? This whole parak is, what if we're all Moshe? Well, what if we're all Moshe? So we're all masik Hashem's essence. And as I keep on insisting, we're masik Hashem's essence, kefi mashahu, except we have nothing to say about it, so therefore it's kilu we weren't. But we're talking about, we have to think about Moshe as being masik Hashem's essence, kefi mashahu, which is obviously not divided into ratzon or chachma or anything. Yeah?
Yeah, and this just connects to why it could be a permanent nace.
Yeah.
It's nothing to do with Europe.
Exactly. So that's why I say that like this, that it does have to do with the fact that Moshe and Moshe are different than everyone else. In other words, like this. On the one hand, just because Moshe made the nace doesn't mean it's going to be permanent. That we see the Rambam's examples. But I'm suggesting that Moshe himself occupies a very interesting position. Why? Because we're not all Moshe. So now Moshe, there's three madrigas we have to talk about. One is Shar Nevi'im and their Nisim. Okay, that's called Malach, and their Nisim are whatever. And then there's, to jump the middle madriga, what if everyone is Moshe? Or everyone goes along with Moshe in Mount Sinai? Then Nisim would be permanent. Because Moshe and Moshe are fundamentally different. Why are Moshe and Moshe fundamentally different? Because Moshe is fundamentally different. Now that we're not all like Moshe, although Moshe and Moshe are fundamentally different, that fundamental difference does not allow those Moshe to be forever, because Moshe is now helping us who are not Moshe. Okay, so I'm saying on the one hand, so it does have to do with what he starts, Perek Lamed Hey, that you have to understand that Moshe's Moshe are different. Why? Because Moshe's world is different. Moshe's Metzias is different.
Pre-Moshe Nevi'im were through a Malach or not through a Malach?
And through a Malach, yeah.
But they were...
Yeah.
No, but they were for
I think so.
For a different reason, but the teva, so to speak, right, of Nevuah before Moshe and after Moshe hasn't changed.
Right. So why is it?
It's not Anisha,
Right.
change. He's just saying, like, hey, we're going back
Right.
to what it was before.
Right.
No, it was never on Hine Nechishlech Malach Lefanecha before. Nobody ever came and said, and was Koyam Hashem. So it was never about...
Right. Now there's the Nevi'im post Moshe are continuing Moshe. Is that what you're saying?
No, they're not.
I'm saying
That's supporting to us,
the
Moshe.
Navi
There never was a
changes with
Navi.
Moshe.
Well,
There was no capital Navi before Moshe.
There's no Elif to Shimon.
Yeah, there's no Elif Tishmon before
Even the
Moshe.
others,
So...
they're a
Right.
different type of
Right. The Rambam says the Av is going to bring Tzivuyim. Right. The Nevi'im, only Moshe could, but the Nevi'im also do. That's what I thought you meant to, that's what I said when you said they continue Moshe. Meaning to say there is Elif to Shimon in Torah's Moshe.
Right.
And the mitzvah is to
The role
Navi.
of Moshe continued.
Correct. As the Rambam says in the Yisrael Torah, the mitzvah to Navi is only because it says in the Torah. It's not because we know it's saying the truth. It's like Edus, right? But the concept of a Navi of Elif to Shimon is this Chadash over here. Yeah. Okay, we have to figure out what the Nakud is over there.
This goes back to the point Pesach raised in the beginning of before it was a Malach. It's a question you just asked. Before there's a Malach. Right.
Okay, so now I would suggest further that the way the Rambam expresses it in Igeres Tchias HaMesim, he says Nisim are not don't have extension. They don't last for a long time. Lo ya'amdu klal v'lo yiskaimu. What about 40 years for an Amud Eish V'ana? That sounds like a long nace from going to Rambam's rule. That a nace is not supposed to be miskayim. No? Right. That's what I'm asking. 40 years. What? Okay.
So we have
40 years of miracles.
40 years.
So
40 years seems to be an acceptable time.
okay, that's fine. But I want to say
And a longer period of time by the Vaisvishan also.
of what?
Where there's various Nisim with the column of the smoke, all these different things, and that's a long
Okay,
period
we
of
have to
time
see
as
the
well.
Rambam explains that. I hear. Right. I don't know if we,
Years.
did we
As
speak
long
about
as
that?
it's beginning
And the
of-
Kisvei
as
too.
long
I've
as
got to look up
it's
the Kisvei
beginning
too.
of the event, he seems okay.
No, I don't think so. No. I had a raya that it can't be too long. I remember one of the kashas were the people that lived for a very long life, according to the Rambam. One of mahalach of his is that it was a nace in Gimel Mem Tes, that it was a nace, 900-year nace. Unless you say once you make it past,
That would be a pretty long day.
right? That's a kasha. No, but I don't remember. I think I
Each year
missed.
might be a nace, maybe. Each is a new nace.
I hear.
What point does the nace begin? Until 200 years before.
Right, we could cut it down a little bit. I hear. Right. No, right. It could be. Maybe. It depends how you understand aging. It depends on how you understood aging and death. right? If it's like, okay, look, one nace was he avoided the cancer. The next nace was that he avoided the stroke. Yeah, every 100 years he needed a nace. In between then he didn't, think of daily walks and don't have a good diet and shame. You can get him from 200 to 300 maybe. Okay, but I want to suggest that this is taka violation to the rule, because this is same way the Rambam suggested this parak that under the paradigm of Nevuos Moshe you could have had a permanent nace. So taka under the paradigm of Nevuos Moshe there was a hemshich, but a 40-year hemshich because we didn't fully embrace Nevuos Moshe, so we only had a partial embracing of Nevuos Moshe and Mount Sinai, which therefore we had a mishkan and a hanaga in the midbar, which was a hemshich of Mount Sinai, hemshich of that kind of nice hanaga.
40 years seems to be there's too many that last for 40 years.
Like what else?
Mine.
No, this is all. I think I'm going to lump that all with the
even though they started before our team.
I hear. Okay. Yeah, maybe that's what Mara does for us. I don't know. What do I know?
It's interesting.
We got to that question of when does the Panim Moshe start, right? That relates to that question. What?
Timing on that is
when does the Torah's Moshe start, right? Vayim Hashem Moshe Chodesh Zelachem Moshe Chadash, maybe that's already Moshe is fearing Panim kind of thing. It would seem because he's making tzivuyim. Tzivuyim need Nevuos Moshe. Okay, it gets those problems that we did not adequately solve. Okay, so basically, Mount Sinai is this contact we have with the world of complete unity, and you don't have this kind of tension between like the world we know and another world where there's inscrutable will. Okay, I want to talk about another aspect over here in Chelik Gimel Perek Lamed Beis. Now we're going to talk about free will. So this Perek, the Rambam says, the big Yesod, that Hashem, the way Hashem controls humans is through a subtle, cunning grace, that he does things to slowly and develop us, but he doesn't change our nature. Doesn't change our nature. I'm Gimel Lamed Beis, which paragraph? Paragraph number 10. 3 questions. Why would Hashem give us karbonis to wean us off of Avodah Zarah? Why can't he just wean us off of Avodah Zarah? Why does he take us through the midbar instead of taking us derech eretz plishtim and just give us the courage to fight wars? And the third question, okay, we can start from paragraph 9 over here. This is already gets to the point we want to get to. Why does the Torah promise us and threaten us? If Hashem wants us to do the Torah, why didn't he just make us do it? Instead of to cajole us, encourage us, and threaten us. Okay? Tshuva This is in paragraph number 10. One general answer for all these 3 and all similar questions. Even though all miracles change the nature of some specific extent, the nature of individual humans, Hashem does not change human nature. Okay, this mi yitin is after we came and said we can't face Hashem, we can't hear the Koil Hashem. So Hashem said mi yitin v'hoyel avavim zelahem. What do you mean mi yitin? Is Hashem speaking? Steht in the pasuk, says the Rambam, that Hashem won't do it. He needs someone else to do it. He won't intervene in human nature. So he says, I wish if only someone could do this for me. By the way, the Gemara in Avodah Zarah says Bnei Yisrael should have answered by saying atotitein. Kfuye taiva. We should have said atotitein, which goes against what the Rambam is saying over here, that Hashem won't change us. The Gemara in Avodah Zarah says we should have just said, what do you mean? What do you mean? You do it. Okay? The Rambam is bringing from this pasuk that Hashem won't do it. Why? Because Hashem doesn't change human nature miraculously. We'll look at that soon. It's not that we're saying that it's difficult for Hashem to change human nature. It's not that it's impossible. It's possible. So what do you mean it's possible but he won't do it? How do you know he won't do it? What type of business is this? How do you tell Hashem what he will and won't do? If it's possible, very strange thing. Elo. According to the Yisoidis Hadas, a very interesting expression. We have to analyze the Arabic of this expression. I'm making it, I'm ironing it to understand this very interesting expression. What do you mean, Al Pi Yisoidis Hadas Shel HaTorah? What does that mean? I know what you mean. You mean that the Navi told you this? So say a Navi told me this. That's not what he's saying. And then, what does he mean? Roughly, what does he mean? He says, "Ilu hayo bechevtzu l'shanis es tivah shekol prapin elamashi yitzis alam yisrael adam." Had Hashem wanted to change everyone's nature to get from the person what he wants from the person, hayu b'teilim shlichus hanavim b'chol matan haTorah. What's this business of Navi Yakum Lemekivachem Kamecha, and what's this business of Matan Torah? So Pashas Rambam is being a raya. Pashas Rambam is being a raya. I'll prove to you, my Yisod, that Hashem doesn't and never will change people. Because if he did, why does he give us the Torah and send us a better way? You want me not to kill someone? Don't make a fire, secure fire and a coil and say, Moshe, and he comes back to me and says, just make me not kill people. Okay. Shvacha kasha. You can say another Torah. I don't know. No, it's a shvacha kasha. That proves that Hashem will never do it?
I don't know. Does Nisim for a reason. He'll mess with the type of a person for a reason.
Maybe he will, you mean, right? Yeah. And maybe he doesn't have a reason to do it, right? What's he saying over here? And what does he mean? He's not saying, again, if he just means to say, I'll prove to, he won't, because otherwise why do he give us Torah? It's not what he's saying. He's saying, what does that mean? Again, he's not using Matan Torah as a proof.
No,
he's saying doesn't the Yisod Torah.
He's saying the Yisod Torah is that he won't do it. And by the way, also, if he wanted to...
This is how it's the Yisod Torah, I think. It's the Yisod Torah that he won't do it, because the Torah is setting up the mahalach of how Hashem manipulates people. That's what he's saying. What? Yeah, okay. So I'll tell you what I think he's saying. But first I want to ask a question. Hashem said, Mi yitain. If only they'll always fear me. I'm very pashta eitzah. Why do we fear him then? Because it was Aish and whatever and Kailas. So do that to continue doing that. You can't do that permanently.
Because it won't scare anybody after a while.
Okay, that's true. That's a good point. That's good. That's a good answer. Okay, right. The same thing. Same answer, Betsy. You just said the reason. You said the reason. You said the fact. Right. Okay. I thought like this. Maybe that's a good answer. I thought the answer is like this. That. I also have another question, which you asked, I think, in the beginning. And maybe I asked this question. The end of Perplexed base was a miracle that we saw the. Yeah. Does that involve changing human nature? Does that violate this rule that Hashem doesn't change human nature? Okay. I would think it does, but I'm not sure about this because I don't really understand what this rule is.
Why is it violent human nature?
Because if we're not able to see it, because we're not an Avi B'Teva, so why didn't?
So if who froze Yerovam's hand, was that
right? I know it's the same question. It's the same question. I know it's the same question. No, of course not.
I mean, on some level, crazy happens the same thing.
Why?
That's not human nature.
Now humans.
Human nature is a separate rule.
Right.
But he's saying that I saw the colors and broke.
Right. The seeing. No, but the seeing. He changed my sight.
He changed your sight. Even if you see something so over the top and so awesome, it's also going to change what you believe. That's the whole concept that seeing creates fear.
Okay. So you're getting to another question, right? So that Hashem doesn't change human nature. Will He do everything around you, and then change you? Okay, that's interesting. I hear. That's another question. Also, of course, if the Rambam means to say like, oh, if God doesn't want me to kill, why didn't He just make me not kill? Teretz says He won't change me. Okay, but there's lots of things He could do around me that could make sure I never kill. Right? Okay, yeah. Right, the Teretz is, he's talking about a much deeper level. Obviously, Hashem doesn't have a will. It doesn't sound like Hashem needs something to get done, and he's trying to figure out how to do it. And the Rambam gave him different eights, and saying, I shouldn't take my eights, it must be that, whatever. There's obviously something much deeper going on over here, right? So what is that? Okay, so I want to just approach this b'derech kasha, and then derech kasha or Teretz, and then I think we'll clarify what in fact this is. I want to say a pashtazach. I want to say that Maimon Asine Taka conflicts with Bechira. Taka conflicts with free will, which Chazal say kafalim harkagigis. And the Meshech Chochmah says the whole thing. Meshech Chochmah says that Moshe Rabbeinu lost his Bechira. Meshech Chochmah knocked down with the Shmos. Moshe Rabbeinu did not have Bechira anymore. And Klal Yisrael went back to Bechira. He says, I ain't shom. I don't know why he gets this. But they went back to Bechira. But at the moment of Matan Torah is taka a conflict with Bechira. And the reason why it's a conflict with Bechira is because of what we discussed. If you're united with Hashem, there's no free will. Yeah, it's free will as much as Hashem has free will. It's not free. Bechira in the Rambam has to do with the fact that we're as you see, we'll look in the Choshuva. It's because we're physical, and we have seichel. So there's a tension between those two. That's what Bechira is. That tension. If we are panim with Hashem, there's no Bechira. Yeah. Okay. So now, Hashem doesn't change human nature. Teretz says that, as the Rambam says, you wouldn't have Matan Torah and Shlichus HaNeviim. Which means, I say, the moment of, okay, we're not doing panim b'panim. So what's instead of panim b'panim? Matan Torah, meaning Moshe, the whole Seder described, Menigish Moshe al Hashem, v'heim lo yigashu, and followed by Shlichus HaNeviim, which is Navi Yaakov Lavim Kam Kach. That's all a decision that we made or built in, whatever, that there's something between us and Hashem. We're not Mesachedim Hashem. We're not Mesachedim Hashem. So now we have Bechira. Now we have Bechira. And now Hashem says, fine, not Mesached, don't be Mesached. Now the way things are going to, so how is there going to be then an influence from God to us if we're not Mesachedim? That's Torah and Nevi'im. Alternatively, the way our God would have influenced us was we would have been Mesached and we would have lost our Bechira. But with Matan Torah, that was the decision of Matan Torah, where there was a possibility of Panim B'Panim, and instead there was, no, it's not going to be Panim B'Panim, it's going to be a bunch of laws, which I'm going to tell you the laws, and we'll get to that in a moment. I said that advisedly, meaning if had we been Panim B'Panim, it would have been different. The content of the Torah would have been different. It wouldn't have been Derech Tzibur V'Azhar. Yeah. So you said that does. It's the Derech HaTorah is the going this way of there is Bechira. Okay?
Isn't the Torah just, we reject Panim B'Panim, so the Torah is just, okay, now here's how you get back to Panim B'Panim.
Well,
isn't the Torah just about how to have the proper Hasaga of Hakadosh Baruch Hu?
No, it's not Panim B'Panim. Yeah, it's not Panim B'Panim. It's something else. It's Mufar Samis. It's rules. Alternative. Yeah, it's definitely alternatives. So this miyitain, the pasuk the Ram always quotes for Bechira is miyitain, because this is what happened with Matan Torah. With Matan Torah, Hashem says as it were, they don't want me to be intervened. They don't want to become me. They don't want to unite with me, which is another. So therefore, I am distant from the world, and therefore, if they choose to have Yira, then it will be their choice. Which is, so going back to Gemara B'Zara, that we should have said Atotitein. It's not. There's a pesach of an answer over here, because actually in Panim B'Panim and Kaf Aleim Hakegiyas, and we didn't have Bechira, and we could have continued with that. Maybe continuing that means we talk to the voice of Hashem, we face Hashem, and we die. I don't know. Maybe it means we die, like Moshe died and didn't have Bechira. Could be. Just saying, there's a pesach of a teretz over here, because the Rambam is not saying an absolute rule. He's saying the essence of the Torah. And now, so far, I'm connecting with the Torah. Why do I say it's the essence of the Torah? In other words, so far I said that this is the choice was made right then. Okay, fine. The choice was made then. Meaning, so what do we say so far? To keep it simple, try to keep it as simple as we can. In theory, we could not have Bechira if we're Panim B'Panim. And that's okay. Does that violate the rule that Hashem doesn't take away human nature? Sort of not, because we're dead. It's a whole different Metzias. It's Moshe Rabbeinu Shain. Okay? It doesn't. But more importantly, the whole rule is coming to effect with Matan Torah, the way the Rambam says it. Now, let's understand that. Saif, maybe Hashem will change it. Yes, if we're not doing Panim B'Panim, there's a Torah. Okay, if we're not doing Panim B'Panim, so Hashem needs another way to influence us. Okay, but how does the Rambam know that becomes this like rule that Bechir becomes inviolate? So I want to explain to you a little bit more what that means. And with this we shall end. Telling Moshe Krav Ato, pass me you said that. Telling Moshe Krav Ato Ushama is Ba'atzim asserting Bechira. I'll tell you why. Tell you why. Because let's say we would have been panim, like Moshe. So we would be pure seichel. So what would happen then? There wouldn't be laws.
Why wouldn't we get the Ratzon also? For panim,
Yeah.
also.
Everything. We know everything. We know the word. We know the mind of Hashem. That's it. We know the mind of Hashem. Right? So we don't have free will. We don't have laws either, because we're pure seichel.
So we know what to do.
Yeah. We're like Adam Rishon Kohen Machet, right? That's Adam Rishon Kohen Machet. You remember, the beginning of the Gemara Buch Perek Aleph and Beis. And what that means is like this. And this people must have made this sushta. I didn't look around, but it must be. The pasuk says in Bereshit Perek Aleph, sorry, Perek Gimel, Vayishmu es Kol Hashem Elokim es Halach B'Agan L'Rachim, V'Yischa B'Hadam V'Yishnim B'Nei Kol Hashem Elokim, right? B'Techet Tzei Agan. So they can't face the Kol. Why? Because they're going to die. But the joke's on them, because really they're actually dying because they ate from this das, which means, according to Rambam, people think that to be alive is for your body, but really Chaim means Chachma. Is the Muskolis. Eitz HaChaim is Chachma, that's the real Chaim. And you machlif the real Chaim from Maves, because you think instead of Chachma you have material reality. Therefore, you don't want to face Hashem. Right? This is the story. Because this is the story of Har Sinai. Exact same story. Hiding from the Kol Hashem Elokim in Bereshis is not facing the Kol Hashem. Ata Lama Nomos. The big joke is, what do you mean Lama Nomos? You know who didn't die? Moshe didn't die. As Ram says, Nakdom Pish V'nais. The Gemara inside the Moshe Le'meis. I'm Nakdom Pish V'nais. We call it Misa, a relative to us. It wasn't Misa. Because he was the most permanent thing. Because his entity became his Ruach, his Seichel. His essence. His essence became his Seichel. So he's the one who's not dying. So it's a big joke. We think we're going to die. We think we're going to die because we're thinking with our bodies, which is not thinking, it's Dimyan. That's the story of Eitz Hadas in a nutshell. So the Eitz Hadas, and what the Rambam tell us also, that the Eitz Hadas story is about Meforsamis, meaning generally accepted truths, which is the law. The law, except for Anechi and Li'elecha, it's all Meforsamis, as we learned, right? So B'kitzur, because we're not one with Hashem, is to say there's something other than Muskalis, other than Hashem. Therefore, the way the mediation between us and Hashem is the law, is the Torah, is laws that tell us about the Meforsamis. This is the Rambam Chelik Aleph Perek Aleph and Beis, and this I think is what I'm saying about the Yisodei Hadas is that Hashem is not intervening, because the Yisodei Hadas, the Torah shtelz havek, and the Torah is nitzchi, so it's not going to change. It's never going to change. The Torah is saying that the mahalach of humanity is with Meforsamis. Okay, this is B'kitzur, very deep stuff. But I want to just end with showing you the Rambam Menachos Tshuva, where he brings like this. The Rambam Menachos Tshuva, he talks about free will. In Perek Hey, so Rishus Kaladim Nesuna Loi, as the Torah says, Hein Hadam Hayuk Achad Mimenu Lo Das Toivira, eating from the Eitz Hadas, that is. And this is Ikur Godel Amud HaTorah Mitzvah. This is what we're talking about now. Amud HaTorah Mitzvah, because the Torah is all about the fact that there's a tension between Seichel and the body, which is what Bechira is, and therefore you need laws. And Al Inyan Zenem, Pnei Zeha Inyan Nemar Mi'itein B'hayel Avav Zelahem. Kaloi Masheina Kabayar Kaifa B'nei Abel Gezel Nas Tevira Libo Muslim. So the two psukim the Rambam brings, the other psukim middle, but the Rambam starts with the pasuk of Eitz Hadas, Hina Mekacham Yimenu, and Mi'itein. And those are both about the same thing. Okay? I'm going to end abruptly right there. And I know it's very deep. I have to think about it myself, but I'll keep this on. Any questions? And
fits with the Chazal that says the Zoom of the Nachash disappears.
Excellent, right?
Right after Rambam.
Very good.
Right?
Very good.
That's what we're saying. We're going
That's right.
We have for a second pre-Eitz Hadas,
Right.
and then right back here.
Very good.
We didn't talk about the significance of kol as opposed to any other form of like. Why couldn't it
Right,
be
Yaakov was
seen-
asking also about the writing, about the ksav and the luchas. Where does that fit in? Because there was also a ksav and the luchas, which is also
And
godly.
Now, especially we're bringing in Adam into this, the kol. What is so significant about kol that it seems to be the way that we have this passage to Kadosh Baruch Hu?
What else should it be?
Seeing
Seeing what?
lights, seeing whatever.
No, but we need information.
You
We need information.
can't see information.
It's the closest thing to raw information is words. No?
But you can see words also.
Right, so reading. Okay, that's the question. The ksav, right? The ksav. Why is speech?
Is it speech or is it sound?
No, it's speech. I think it's speech. By the way, I think the Rambam talks about the koil Hashem Elokim mishalech. Right, he says the koil was mishalech.
So what's the difference between diber and kol?
Koil is the sound of speech. No, a koil could be kol shofar. It could be a kol shofar. Yeah, we spoke about this. A koil could be a koil of anything. Koil devarim. It could be.
No, but in all these
Right.
instances where it's definitely referred to as a kol versus
Yeah, but
Hashem El, to
Yeah.
Moshe or to Klal Yisrael or to Adam.
Yeah. But let's say in the case of Adam, so we have to look into what was that koil? What was the content of that koil? They heard the koil of Hashem Elokim Misalach Bagan. They hid, and then Hashem said Ayeka. Was the koil Ayeka? Was it a koil of words or was it a koil of something else? I don't know. We have to look at Ram talks about that in Aleph Chaf Aleph. We have to look around. Okay, so let me just try to wrap it up because I was just a little abrupt over there. What's the bottom line over here? That Inachanami Rambam is telling us in this parak that there could have been a different world of Nevuos Moshe, of Nisim, permanent Nisim, and what was the kasha about? Oh, miyitain, right? Doesn't that violate our bechira if it's permanent? Because Hashem said miyitain, I can't make this permanent. Right? It's the same kasha. Hashem said, "Miyitain." What do you mean? Why don't you continue doing this? Elamai, because continuing doing this would also violate Abechira, or somehow violates the rules of Nisim. Okay, so then how could the Rambam suggest he would have? Okay, so I'm just saying it all goes together. The Rambam says it's the Matan Torah and the Shlichus Neviim, which is about this separation between us and God. That's what Matan Torah and Shlichus Neviim and Matan Torah. Mashenkin, if we would all be punished upon him, the Torah wouldn't have been given. The Neviim wouldn't have been sent. We would have all been Moshe. We would have all been living with Muskalis. And that's my connection to the Mishnah Kodem Achet. So the two psukim of Bechira, Heina Makach Mimenu and Miyite.
So Torah is only necessary because we refuse.
Yeah.
And the question I have, I don't think we're really answered despite talking about it many times, is was it ever really possible for us to do?
Yeah, I don't think so. To what? To
have the Hasagas HaKol. I mean,
no, I don't think so. I don't think so. I think this is all.
Tell the not to touch not to come onto the mountain.
Oh, that problem. Okay,
I'm just saying from a practical standpoint, it doesn't seem like we really
no.
had
So
the possibility of engaging.
I know, but I'm going with this Moshe that maybe we could be like, maybe we need one Moshe and then we could go along with him. Maybe something like that. Maybe we could participate.
So you think it somehow could have still been possible?
Maybe, I don't know.
Some version of it.
Yeah, maybe. I'm saying basically with the point I was saying with the law in a very deep way. I'm saying the whole, and this gets into the whole concept of mefursamis, meaning we create this mefursamis for ourselves because we don't want to engage directly with the truth. It's very scary to engage directly with like just reality, and it's brute, which is like facing the voice of God. What?
Raw reality, yeah.
Right. So facing raw reality without laws, without like no, there's this and there's that and there's all things. It's like facing the voice of God, which we can't do. No such thing. Rambam says.
The mitzvahs that were given pre-Matan.
Like Mara?
Yeah.
So that may have been Nevuos Moshe. That's what we were saying before. That could be.
When Nevuos Moshe started.
Yeah, we already have this Panim Panim project going on, and look, it continued for 40 years afterwards, and maybe this is the height of it was Mount Sinai, but it could be.
We already saw the Anan.
Right. The Anan starts in B'Shach, as we said. Right, starts there. Right.
The presence of the
Right.
oral production.
Right. I mean, Moshe starts in Pasha Shmois. It's Shmois, the last four farm.
Yeah. I still want you to tell me how you read Perplexed. We say the Torah.
Yeah.
Because to my reading, I mean, we're saying it's an ace. And
What, the hearing the coil?
I think we have to say the coil is not an ace. Because I'm not trying to
You're
read
right,
it.
it's not an ace. The Gemara says that all the guys heard it also.
Yeah,
It's
you
double
said.
what happened.
Yeah.
The reason for them to have the same basis also in this case.
Panim makes a coil, and then
I think it's easier to
Fine.
say the coil's not an ace.
Yeah, I have no
You
problem
were
saying that.
suggesting
No.
when we're talking that it's an ace and you can still read ches nonetheless. That it's not. We're not
It's
immune
not
by
an ace.
Yisrael because of the name.
right. And he's saying if it's an ace, then the
But
mice is
not
still
an ace
difey.
specific to Jews.
Right.
Yeah.
He's saying, if it's an ace, it's still difey. Okay.
Yeah, or what's the basis of the Rambam statement then? The whole statement falls apart. What do you mean the coil is a big fat ace then?
No, I was just assuming if I experience a nace, but you're saying it's always like that. I always have some experience of the nace, and nonetheless, that doesn't tell me anything. Right? No, here sounds right.
Deal with the base love test that
Yeah.
never changes.
Right.
How does he deal with Misa and Ganein?
What do you mean?
That never changes. It wouldn't necessarily have been Misa beforehand.
For what?
You mean Moshe should have died?
No,
Oh, you mean
all of them.
Oh, that's Sheshim Bereshis.
Oh, it's still 6 days. Tava's not done.
Still in the happening, right? Exactly. He says explicitly in Beis
It's an
Lamed.
amazing diak. I love that diak.
What?
That it's a feature, not a bug, because it's on day 6.
Yeah. Right. Oh, time for my. Okay, Shkoyach Gadol.
Wow, really, really.
We did it.
We should have waited so long to do the next one.
I don't know.